What a turnaround for the Boston Bruins, who are helping us erase the memories of last season by not only being fun to watch, but winning meaningful games and putting themselves in a position for a playoff spot.
You're Locked On Bruins, your daily podcast on the Boston Bruins, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, Bruins fans, and welcome back to the Locked On Boston Bruins podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network. I'm your host, Ian McLaren. I am a lifelong Boston Bruins fan, and I've been covering this team and the NHL for various outlets for nearly 20 years. Today is Friday, December 12th. And on this episode, we are going to break down the storylines, the stats, and the significance of last night's win over the Winnipeg Jets, including David Pastrnak being dominant in his return from injury, Charlie McAvoy getting back in there after facial surgery, and the Bruins picking up a big 2 points on the road while losing Victor Arvidsson and Jonathan Aspirot to injury. We'll also look ahead at the weekend's action with a game coming up against the Minnesota Wild. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. If you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. All right, let's get into it, my friends. The Boston Bruins are on a roll, winning 4 games in a row, including last night's victory over the Winnipeg Jets. And I had said coming into it that it was a winnable game, primarily because their best player, one of the best players in the NHL, Connor Hellebuyck, is currently on the shelf. And the Bruins were getting not only Charlie McAvoy back from injury, but also a David Pastrnak who has been able to shake off the rust from his injury in incredible fashion. This guy had 4 points last night, including 2 goals, and now has 7 points in 2 games since returning from injury. Unbelievable production from David Pastrnak, who after missing 5 games, still back among the league leaders in scoring because of this 7-point outburst over his past 2 games. He now has 36 points in 27 games, which is good for a 1.33 point per game average, tying him with Jack Eichel and putting him ahead of the likes of William Nylander, Leon Draisaitl, and 2 of last night's opponents, Mark Scheifele, Kyle Connor. Looking at the league leaders right now, if you can believe it, Mark Stone is tied with Nathan MacKinnon for the league lead in terms of point per game average, along with ahead of Connor McDavid, Nikita Kucherov, Connor Bedard. Anyways, Pastrnak putting himself back in the mix in terms of the very best players in the NHL production-wise. We already know that he's up there when it comes to the very best of the best, and a 7-point outburst over 2 games, including 4 points last night, just continues to cement that. Charlie McAvoy, coming back from his injury, was able to get an assist on Pasternak's 12th goal of the season. He is now up to 15 assists in 20 games so far this season, and making a much quicker than expected return from his injury. It was less than a month ago that he took a puck to the face in Montreal, required surgery, wasn't able to eat solids for quite a lot of time, lost 20 pounds, and now he's back in the mix, logging big minutes, 24 minutes and 16 seconds of ice time last night. He got an assist. He was a +4, and 15 points in 20 games puts him on pace over the course of a full season to set a career high in points. And he hasn't even scored a goal as of yet. Of David Pastrnak, Marco Sturm said he's a pretty good hockey player. Quite kind of obvious. He said, nope, he's a special player. And only those kind of players can put up 7 points in 2 games since returning from injury. For his part, Pastrnak said he's just trying to play the right way. When you're winning, it's much easier to just join the group. That's my main focus. They were playing great hockey when guys were out. In fact, they went 3-2 without both Pastrnak and McAvoy. And there's less pressure when you come back from injury and the guys are indeed performing, they're winning, and you don't have that pressure of having to come in and be kind of a savior in that way. It was McAvoy's first game since November 15th. He had, again, the 1 point, 4 shots, a block, a hit. He said it's a lot of fun. These guys have been playing great hockey. Always tough to sit out. He had that experience last season, and it was tough then because the ship was kind of sinking, and you don't want to be on the sidelines when some of your longtime teammates and friends are being traded. This time it was different because the guys are gelling, they're playing well, and he said it's tough to sit out, especially when they're looking like they're having a lot of fun and playing really good. It's a joy to be back, playing with this group. Great game and a big road win. And that's kind of my biggest takeaway from this team at the moment. The Bruins are so fun to watch. And there were so many times last season where, not that you dreaded tuning into a Bruins game, but it was just not a fun experience. Not only were they losing, but the way they were losing was very uninspiring and, quite frankly, pretty boring at times, as Joe Sacco was kind of just implementing a system that was trying to keep them treading water or afloat. Now the Bruins are playing a structure that keeps them safe in their own end, but they're also pretty freewheeling and able to grind teams out and take advantage offensively. For this team to score 6 goals on the road in Winnipeg, even without Connor Hellebuck in the lineup, is a great thing to see. And Marco Sturm said their third period last night was their best period as of late. They did all the work, grinding teams out in the first 40 minutes, and then they hit another gear in the third as their skill guys took over. And last night, it was indeed their skill guys who took over. David Pastrnak leading the way with 4 points. Morgan Geeky with 3 assists for the Boston Bruins in this one. He hasn't scored a ton of goals lately, but he's chipping in with those assists to keep his point total afloat. He has, he did score a couple goals a couple games ago, but he hasn't scored since like a week, but he did have those 3 assists, and he's now got a total of 35 points in 32 games, and he is on pace for 56 goals, 33 assists, and 90 points, which would smash his career high that he set last season. Again, having McAvoy back, huge for the Bruins. And this was a team that it was a total effort once again in this one, as the Bruins beat the Jets 6-3, getting contributions up and down the lineup. You also had Sean Corrali scoring a beauty. You had Elias Lindholm chipping in with 2 points, Casey Middlestat with a goal as well, and Hampus Lindholm roofing one past Eric Comrie for a beauty as well. Eunice Corpusalo, solid, 3 goals on 29 shots for an .897 save percentage, and just another full team effort from a team that has a buy-in. It's fun to watch. Not without casualties last night, though. The Bruins did lose a couple players to injury. We'll take a look at some more stats from this one, the significance of the win and those 2 injuries here as the podcast continues. NFL Sundays move very fast, and one big play, suddenly everything feels different. That's what makes live betting with FanDuel so exciting. You're not just watching the game, you're reacting to it in real time. With FanDuel, you can place live bets as the action unfolds. Every drive, every momentum swing, every highlight moment. Let's be honest, live betting is best when the game starts to shift. A receiver gets hot, a defense tightens up, or the momentum flips after a turnover. FanDuel lets you jump right into the moment with live spreads and money lines, player props. If you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit fanduel.com and place your NFL bets all season long. FanDuel.com, where the game moves fast, and so can you. Make sure to get your bets in on next touchdown scores, drive results, totals, and more. FanDuel keeps you locked into every snap, every drive, and every possibility. Thank you for making Locked On Boston Bruins your first listen of the day, and thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. You're already living the Bruins every day. Now take it up a level and go ad-free. Join the Everydayer Club and get Locked On Boston Bruins with no interruptions, members-only Discord access, and more. All for just $5 a month or $50 a year. Go to lockedonbruins.supercast.com or check the link in the show notes to learn more. All right, the Bruins last night did win the game, but they lost a couple players due to injury. Both Jonathan Aspirot and Victor Arvidsson left the game and were not able to return with respective injuries. Now, the Bruins do have defensive reinforcements already with them on this road trip, as Victor Soderstrom is with the team, having played in the absence of Charlie McAvoy the other night in St. Louis. So my bet is that if Aspirot is unable to get back into the lineup anytime soon, that it will be Soderstrom who goes back in. And I don't dislike that at all. I was hoping to see Soderstrom still in the lineup. Aspirot has defied my expectations. He's been very solid on the blue line, but I think there's kind of a higher ceiling there with Soderstrom. He was a very high draft pick a few years ago, SHL player or defenseman of the year last year, and he's a guy who can really contribute all over the ice. So I'm excited to get him back in the lineup. He was recalled, of course, when Michael Callahan went down, who was recalled when Henry Jokiharju went down. They're already still without Jordan Harris, so they are mining kind of the depths of their defensive depth, and Soderstrom, a great option to come in and play, especially with McAvoy, Lindholm, Zadorov, Mason Lohrei already playing at or coming back and playing at high levels. Now for Arvidsson, the logical move here would be to recall Fabian Lysell. Talked about him on yesterday's podcast. He's been playing excellent in the AHL, putting up a ton of points, showing some toughness. The other night, he, I believe, lost a chiclet, was able to come back to the game. Obviously not a Selke Trophy candidate, but he's a guy that you want to come in and put in position to succeed. He's not a guy that you call up and you give him small minutes on a checking role. The Arvidsson spot is exactly where this guy should be penciled in, playing second line, right wing, along with a defensively responsible center in Pavel Zacha, a guy who's increasingly becoming more confident as a Boston Bruin in Casey Middlestat. And that's a guy who can come in, pop him on the second line, and finally see what he's able to do. Now, there's no timeline on Arvidsson. Perhaps he's just a little banged up and should be able to get back in there sooner than later. But in the meantime, you call up Fabian Lysell, you deploy him in that scoring role and see what he can do. Now, last night, the Bruins, in all situations, this kind of game leaned a bit towards the Winnipeg Jets at 5-on-5 anyways. The Jets had the advantage in terms of shot attempts, shots, scoring chances, high danger chances, and expected goals. And that was still the case in terms of all situations. Expected goals were pretty even, 3.65 to 3.44 in favor of the Jets. So they had 51.5% of the expected goals, and that's looking at shot attempts, shots, scoring chances, and high danger chances. The Bruins were able to get some saves from Joonas Korpisalo, and of course, they benefited from the fact that Connor Hellebuck was out of the lineup, and they were matched up against a goalie that's a career backup. And hey, that's just how the schedule shakes out sometimes. Now, with the win, the significance of it is that they were able to pick up a huge 2 points. They've won 4 in a row, and the Boston Bruins are now tied with the Tampa Bay Lightning for the most points in the Atlantic Division, and they're only 2 points behind the Washington Capitals and the Carolina Hurricanes, who are first in the Eastern Conference with 40 points. The Islanders up there as well with 39 points, which is pretty surprising. So the Bruins currently sit 5th in the East in terms of total points. If you kick it back to point percentage, they are back in the top 8 and are currently, what are they? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 in the East by way of point percentage. Only the Penguins, Islanders, Lightning, Flyers, Capitals, and Hurricanes have better point percentages. There's a lot of Metro teams in there, meaning it's possible, likely, that there will be 5 Metropolitan teams, 2 of them getting the wildcard spots, and then only 3 Atlantic teams in the playoffs. So it means the Bruins must try to hang on to one of these top 3 spots in order to guarantee that they would be in the playoffs. They've won 4 in a row. They have a +8 goal differential, which is second best in the Atlantic. In the conference, that puts them 4th. So that's pretty big. They're 7-3 over their last 10. And while they do have a tough road game coming up against the Minnesota Wild, they'll be coming home for 5 games to play before the holiday break, and that's a real opportunity to pick up some points. Yes, they've played the most games in the East, tied with the Islanders, the Red Wings, and the Rangers, but their point percentage still very strong, .594, and you have a bunch of teams who are struggling right now in terms of, the Maple Leafs lost to the Sharks last night. The Panthers lost their last game. The Senators won, but they're 4-6 over their past 10. You have to think that Florida will make a charge at some point. Jury's out on the Senators and the Maple Leafs. Leafs are really struggling without Mitch Marner. The Senators can't seem to put it together. And the Red Wings very much still in the mix, although they've only been 4-4-2 over their last 10. They lost their last game, -9 goal differential. There's a real opportunity here for the Boston Bruins to be one of those top 3 teams in the Atlantic. And that's not something that we anticipated coming into this season. I expected them to be better for sure because so many things went wrong last season. So many guys got injured. There were all those trades. Jeremy Swayman was not great, to say the least. Jim Montgomery fired. A lot of uncertainty around this club. They made some savvy trades, brought in some, look at the trade deadline last season. Casey Middlestad's contributing. Fraser Minton's contributing. Murat Husnudinov contributing. Victor Arvidsson, who was traded for in the summer, he's been contributing when he's in the lineup. There was no chance. I mean, there was a chance that they would be as bad as last season, but so many things had to go wrong. Not to say that they are a Stanley Cup contender or, the lineup is at its possible best, but there's reason to believe that this team can remain in the mix and will not be kind of in sell mode like they were last season. And they've got 2 first-round picks. They've got 2 first-round picks next season. So they could even be in a position to add, which is what you want them to do. Because as much as we say, nope, sell these guys, get some assets for the future, I don't see it that way, because you have Jeremy Swayman, you have Charlie McAvoy, you have found gold in Morgan Geeky, you have David Pastrnak putting up 7 points in 2 games. If you put the right guys around them, this is a team that could compete because they have those solid core pieces at key positions. Up next will be a huge test against the Minnesota Wild. That is a game we'll preview here as the podcast continues. The holidays are amazing, but they can also get pretty overwhelming very fast. Travel, gifts, parties, year-end expenses. It's really easy to lose track of your money this time of year, and that's exactly why Monarch has become such a game changer. If you want to keep your finances under control this holiday season, you need to be using Monarch. It's rated Wall Street Journal's best budgeting app of 2025, and Monarch is the all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, simple dashboard. The holiday spending category can become a lifesaver. You can see exactly what's left in your gift and travel budget in real time. And it's great for couples. Shared dashboards, shared goals, fewer "wait, how much did we spend" conversations. Don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarch.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarch.com with code LOCKEDONNHL. All right, so our Boston Bruins get a bit of a break here. They will be off until Sunday, when they will travel to Minnesota to finish out this 3-game road trip with a game against the Wild. The Wild are one of the better teams in the Western Conference. They're 17-9-5, 629 point percentage, and a +7 goal differential. They've got 39 points, which is tied for the third most in the Western Conference. They have some elite talent in Kirill Kaprizov, in Matt Boldy, and in net, they've got a very formidable tandem of Philip Gustafsson, Jesper Wallstedt. Now, one advantage the Bruins do have is that they don't play until this game on Sunday, whereas the Wild will be hosting the Ottawa Senators on Saturday afternoon. So it will be the second of a back-to-back for the Wild, whereas the Bruins get Friday, today, and tomorrow to rest and get ready for that game against Minnesota. So that's huge for the Bruins, especially when you have guys who are recovering from injury still, looking to get back to 100%, and some question marks in terms of who will be in the lineup. They can get some reinforcements if Arvidsson is out. Fabian Lysell. Let's just take a look at the AHL transactions page real quick to see if there's any movement on that front. But this is a tough game. And when you look at the schedule, you saw this road trip coming up. You see the Blues beatable, the Jets without Hellebuck, they're beatable. Minnesota, though, is going to be a tough out. Their goaltending is spectacular. Jesper Wallstedt, the rookie, 8-1-2 with a .936 save percentage, 4 shutouts. Philip Gustafsson, very good as well, 9-8-3 with a .907 save percentage. That's why the Bruins started Korpisalo last night, to keep Swayman fresh for this big matchup on Sunday. Wild, 7-2-1 in their last 10. They will have the game coming up against Ottawa, but they just beat Dallas, which is very impressive. Dallas is one of the better teams in the NHL. And they are led in scoring by some real game changers. Matt Boldy, 17 goals, 18 assists. Kirill Kaprizov, 34 points in 31 games, 18 goals, 16 assists. Third leading scorer is a guy that the Bruins are familiar with. Marcus Johansson scored a beauty the other night, 11 goals, 12 assists, 23 points on a very affordable contract, he has rediscovered his mojo for sure. You also have to look out for Joel Eriksson, Marco Rossi, Vladimir Tarasenko, Matt Zuccarello, among others. And then on the blue line, Brock Faber, Zev Buim, always dangerous as well. So this is a pretty good team that the Bruins are going to have their hands full with. Now, when it comes to special teams battles, the Bruins, their power play is up to 4th in the NHL, and their penalty kill is 10th. Whereas the Wild, their power play is only 11th, and their penalty kill is 19th. So that is an area where the Bruins can take advantage of, is especially on special teams. And that's a huge reason why the Bruins have turned things around this season. Special teams last year were abysmal, and it was not able to kind of cover up their deficiencies at 5-on-5, which still do exist. They're not the best team 5-on-5. They regularly give up more shots and scoring chances than the opposition, but their scoring or their special teams has been on point. That's certainly helping. And the goaltending has been much better than last season, which is huge as well. The Bruins, 10th in terms of face-off percentage. The Wild are 47th, so the Bruins can take advantage of that as well. Win the face-offs, get possession, and force the play the other way. The Bruins are now 9th in terms of goals for per game, 3.28 goals for. The Wild, despite their star power, they're 24th in terms of overall offense, 2.81 goals per game. Their defense, though, is on point, 2.65 goals allowed. The Bruins allowing 3.09, which is 17th. But it used to be they were allowing more than they were scoring. Now they're finally scoring more goals than they're allowing, which, of course, is the whole point of this hockey game. You're going to want to keep an eye on the Senators Wild tomorrow afternoon, because that will have a direct impact on the Bruins and who they recall if Victor Arvidsson is injured. I'll be sure to post a short in advance of the game on Sunday, just to bring you all the latest and what you can expect to see when the puck drops Sunday in Minnesota. That is it for today's episode of Locked On Boston Bruins, my friends. Thank you so much again for taking the time to listen. Thank you for making Locked On Boston Bruins your first listen of the day. On Monday, we'll be back to recap the game against the Wild and bring you all the latest on the Boston Bruins. Make sure you subscribe and follow Locked On Boston Bruins to get all the latest episodes. Follow along on the YouTube channel or on Instagram at Locked NHL Bruins to get all the very latest in terms of shorts and immediate reaction. Also, if Locked On Boston Bruins made your Spotify Wrapped, you can get a free month of our brand new Everydayer Club. Prove it on socials by tagging our national Locked On Podcast Network account on any social platform, and we will drop you a code. You can be one of the first to join the Everydayer Club, get your favorite shows ad-free, exclusive access to the members-only Discord channel. Again, go to lockedonbruins.supercast.com to learn everything you need to know about the Everydayer Club. For those of you on video, we send you now to the first ever 24/7 National Locked On Podcast Network YouTube channel. On audio, make sure you make your second listen NHL Game Night on the Locked On NHL channel. Please do have a great weekend. Please take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and we'll talk to you again here on the next episode of Locked On Boston Bruins, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.